minority persons, which includes all non-white populations, including Hispanics. Just by comparison, you can see some of the city and county minority percentages listed in the bullets below. Eunice is 49.9% minority, Hobbs is 61%, Jal is 50%. You can read the list. Ector County overall is 58.9% minority, and Lee County is 57% minority. In terms of median household income, we looked at American Community Survey data, which is 2009 to 2013 statistical data, and no census tract had median household income below the census poverty level for 2010 or the Department of Health and Human Services poverty level for 2015, which is $24,250 for a family of four. The map just shows the distribution of income levels. With regard to environmental justice, are encountered by the 4-mile radius. Lee County Tract 8 Block Group 2 has 37.3% minority. Andrews County Tract 9501 Block Group 1 has 31.9% minority. The minority populations also do not exceed 20% more than the reference population. In terms of median household income, the block groups had median household incomes above the DHHS poverty guideline, and therefore we do not have environmental justice communities of concern in our project area. Our impact analysis is underway. We are conducting socioeconomic impact analysis to determine the ability of the community to support CISF operations. Our economic impact analysis, we're using InPlan, and we've built a model consisting of Gaines County, Texas, Andrews County, Texas, and Lee County, New Mexico. We're in the process of estimating direct, indirect, and final economic and employment impacts within the region, and we'll also overall discuss benefits and costs. With regard to historic and cultural resources, we have submitted a coordination letter with Texas Historical Commission, and they have concurred that no additional historic resources survey is required. We'd have no impacts to historic resources. We've also conducted an archaeological survey because the last one that was conducted on the site was done over 20 years ago, and our archaeological survey did not find any impact or any need for additional survey within the project footprint. We're writing that report right now. And then finally, we are in the process of preparing a courtesy coordination letter to be submitted to the New Mexico State Historic Preservation Office. Although we're not physically conducting any work in New Mexico, we want them to be aware of the status of our current studies. With that, I'll hand it to Rick.
So I want to talk about the other impacts. This list you see on the slide was developed from the list in NUEG 1748. I want to focus this morning only on land use, ecology, public and occupational health, and waste disposal, and a little discussion on background radiation as part of the public and occupational health discussion. These other impacts we're going to study and will be included in the environmental report, but I'm not going to address them today because, frankly, we have a huge amount of information on geology, soil, hydrology, water resources in this area because of the large number of reports that have been done in the past. Waste Control has an online meteorological station so that we have very detailed on-site metadata. We don't have to rely on meteorological data from some weather station 30 miles away. So that is a very good data for the site. Noise has been addressed quantitatively by URENCO and qualitatively by Waste Control on other applications. We have some data on that. And visual and scenic resources, there's no historical sites or scenic vistas or national parks or anything of this nature where visual or scenic resources will be substantially impacted. So next slide, please. So going on then to land use, the primary regional land use in this area within the 30-mile radius is primarily oil and gas production. With some mining, there's a caliche and gravel mine northwest of the site in New Mexico. There's a number of waste disposal facilities, not only radioactive waste disposal facilities associated with waste control specialists, but there's also a municipal landfill southwest of the proposed site. There's oil and gas waste disposal west of the site in New Mexico. There's a oil and gas NORM, or naturally occurring radioactive material waste disposal site southeast of the facility. So there's a number of waste disposal facilities in the area, and there's nuclear facilities as well. There's Urenco to the west of New Mexico. There's all of the waste control, nuclear-related waste disposal facilities on the property itself. And then, of course, WIP is 40 miles or so off to the west near Carlsbad. So those are the primary regional land uses. A secondary regional land use in the area is primarily ranching. There's not much in the way of farming in the community, but you do see some cattle ranching. As to ecology, the ecological resources have been extensively evaluated a number of times. You can see waste control dated originally 96, updated in 97, 2004, 2006, 2007, 2008. Urenco came along and they did their own ecological evaluations in 2003, 2004. So we have extensive databases for ecological resources. And we have relied so far on online ecological resource databases to update all of the previous studies. And I haven't seen that there will be any particular impacts on the ecology based on all of the former studies and consulting online resource databases. So as to public and occupational health, in 1995 or mid-90s, Waste Control did an extensive evaluation of the background radiation in support of their first applications that filed for a treatment, storage, and processing facility. And then of course, there's been a number of other facilities that have come on in the past, including the low-level waste disposal site, the federal waste disposal site, this so-called byproduct material disposal site for uranium, mill tailings, what have you. And every time those facilities come online, a new background evaluation analysis is done to evaluate the cumulative effects of all of these facilities on the background radiation. As to chemical exposure, which is one of the things New Reg 1748 requests an evaluation of, the major source of chemical exposure in the area really is from volatile organics from oil and gas production. There's not much in the way of chemical operations related to the facilities at Waste Control, or at Urenco for that matter. Waste Control has an excellent low occupational injury rate, and health tech studies that have been done by the state of Texas, by the Department of Department of State Health Services, has found there's no exceptional health issues in this particular region of interest. Next slide, please. And as to waste disposal, there's minimal waste produced by this interim infield storage facility, both radiological and chemical. We don't expect much waste in either case. And if there was any sort of waste to be disposed of course, there's nearby facilities on the site for low-level waste disposal. There's nearby off-site industrial facilities to handle industrial chemical waste or municipal waste. So we think all of the waste that would be produced at the CISF, both solid industrial waste and low waste, can be readily handled. As to cumulative impacts, those are being assessed as we prepare the environmental report. But we will assess all of the cumulative impacts for all sources of radiation in the region of interest. We don't anticipate significant impacts from any non-radiological hazards. And we think they'll be, in any event, insignificant when they're compared to federal and state limits. As Ashley said, she is still in the process of doing the socioeconomic impact analysis, and we're not presupposing the outcome of those analyses, but we think that they're likely to be favorable, and we think it will offset any negative impacts. But we have not yet concluded that analysis, and we'll continue to do that. So we think that there will be favorable environmental impacts from a consolidated interim storage facility, mostly in removing spent nuclear fuel from urban areas around the U.S. and more highly populated areas, and allowing decommissioned reactor sites to be returned to greenfield. So that is my analysis of my presentation, and I'll turn it back to Scott for closing.
Yes, well, again, asking you and Rick, thank you both very much. So what we've done is we've just really gone through the table of contents and set new Reg 1748. This is going to be the approach that we're intending. We're moving forward with it as we speak. We're not finished yet. We don't intend to submit the application until April of 2016. But we're also looking for some feedback from the NRC staff about the proposed direction that we're taking. One of the purposes of why we came here today for this pre-application meeting. Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. So I would encourage, I know Deanna's here at the table now. Thanks for coming up to the table. She has her CFRs there. And encourage anybody to have questions, especially Deanna. I know this is mostly in your area, and your branch chief is here as well. I see Lydia Chang back there as well, so please ask any questions that you'd like to.
I just have one question. You can clarify a little bit the phase 1, phase 2 approach that you're taking, and the 4,000 metric tons. What's the application consist of, and then the length of the operation?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Because what we intend is we're going to develop the consolidated interim storage facility in phases. We're looking right now at 8 phases. We're thinking, yes, 8 phases. But that's not definitive yet. I mean, that's where we're looking now. We're still honing in and our engineering analysis and those sorts of things. But we want to have the authorizations to store 40,000 metric tons. That's what was approved by private field storage. We thought that was a very good environmental impact statement to look at, since those cumulative impacts were assessed at that facility. And that's what we're proposing, but it will be done over probably 8 different phases, and over a 20-year time frame as well. And so we thought that approach was appropriate, given that private fuel storage had taken that approach before. 40,000 metric tons goes a long way to helping solve some of the nation's problems with it. And as far as the screening process, the go-no-go criteria, phase 1 and 2 that we shared, what we did is we looked at how Urenco also went through their alternative site selection process. And it's very similar, but we customized it towards a spent fuel storage facility as opposed to a uranium enrichment facility. But it was a very methodical, it was impressive. We thought, since it was successful in the past, and I assume you guys like it, then we should use something very similar again. To answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So to make clarification, because I thought I heard you said that the EIS would encompass the entire 40,000, but is it the plan to submit the EIS in phases as well?
No. We want the environmental impact statement to be all-encompassing.
Okay, good.
We're going to bound the analysis across the board. We want 40,000. We're going to analyze 40,000 metric tons, but in licensing space, we're going to do it incrementally, because we just thought that was the best approach forward, especially as you add new systems in it. But we can add new systems in it by amendments. But we want the environmental impact statement to be all-encompassing. And we're going to bound our analysis for 40,000. That's correct. And that's very important, too.
Yes. Good. So I have a question on the rail line. The rail line, you said it just needs a new spur put in for the existing station. So the load capacity of the rail line is such that it can't handle spent fuel transportation system?
Yes, I understand. It was rated for at least 450,000 pounds to handle the steam generators that we did this past summer. There were some substantial upgrades from the TNMR line. That goes from Monahans directly to WCF, so we don't think it's going to require any further upgrades.
Good, thank you, Scott. I forgot about the steam generators that you accepted there already. Yeah. So any other folks from NRC want to ask questions? Oh, yes, come on up, Chris. That mic should be active.
Hi, I just had one question on the cumulative impact slide. There's a bullet that says favorable impacts are expected from consolidation. Does that mean that you'll be looking at the environmental impacts from the origin site, where the fuel will be coming from?
No, my thought is that the license is for the WCS site itself. We're looking at the favorable impacts insofar as our project will allow the removal of the spent fuel at those other locations. But the environmental impacts that we're looking at collectively are for the WCS site. But there is going to be some, and Ashley can address probably more of the socioeconomic portions of that analysis, more so than I can. Yes, exactly.
Our economic analysis is, like I mentioned, using the Interim model, so we're focusing on the direct, indirect, and final economic impacts from James County, Andrews County, and Lee County. So it's focused in the region rather than looking at the origin site.
So let me ask a question about, and maybe Deanna or Liddy can help me on this, the incorporation by reference or the NEPA tiering process. Is that something we're familiar with? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, it's allowed under, the effective incorporate by reference, as long as you all make, you incorporate and you make sure that it's applicable to your site-specific conditions and your proposed, the scope of the proposed action, then, it's allowed.
Okay.
And I thought there is, so a lot of work's already been done, so you should take credit for the work that's already been done and not recreate it if it's not necessary. So it's already
Out
done.
there, right, as long as it's, you can use it for your, for your site-specific conditions and the scope of your project.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Have we done that before? Looked at applications that took that
And you look
strategy?
at other, reviews,
Yeah.
that have been,
Yeah. Okay, good. Because nothing new.
right.
I mean, for the socioeconomic information, it's essentially the same area that was looked at in 2007, 2008, but obviously there's been a new census since that time, so, we're bringing all of that information up to date, but we can refer back to the past data and see how things have changed since that time. And with regard to archaeology, for example, we looked at all the past records and nothing was found previously, but given 20 years since the physical investigation, we decided it made sense to go ahead and investigate that, for example.
I do have, clarification questions, or one or two. The first one is on the slide number 40. You talk about the health effects study. Is that what that's included? That's the radiological or other kind of chemical?
That's largely related to other types of chemicals,
So not the radiological.
other types of morbidity and mortality related to things not specifically radiological, let me say it that way.
Okay, so that's one. And also the other one is on page 27. You talk about the projected population growth. Will you or have you considered the possibility of, because of the operation of WCS, the migration of water and that kind of accumulated increase of population?
We will look, the in-plan model takes information from the construction phase, investments, and annual operating costs, and when you plug it into the model, it gives you some of the output has to do with jobs that would be directly created and also sort of indirectly created. So the model will look at that. These population projections are existing information from both the Water Development Board and Texas State Data Center that just sort of look at anticipated change over time.
So, but in your model, you have to separate your input in the considered additional worker, that kind of population growth.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have just one quick question. I don't know if you can answer, but you all would need other permits, state, local, or other federal permits for
Yes, we will. We'll need like an MPDS permit, it's the Texas equivalent. Yes, we'll need one of those. We'll need some air permits. We've spoken to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. We've talked to them. We plan on giving them a briefing here soon as well, and to lay out the scope of the project, and so they get a full understanding of the impact it's going to have on their resources, and understand what our general approach is. But yes, to answer your question, there will be.
For your transportation, do you also have to work with DOT's regulation and before you can go forward with that for transportation?
We are.
Okay. Question on your site scoring. Are you saying you continue to do site scoring, or that's pretty much it?
No, that's an example, and that's only for the siting criteria. If you go back to the previous page, there's also operational considerations and environmental. We're going to go down very similar, and I just showed you on one page as an example of the approach. So the scores that you see on the bottom are not going to be the final scores, because what we're going to do is total them all up to include both the siting characteristics and the sub-criteria that go with it, but also the operational aspects and environmental considerations as well.
Okay, this is the example.
This is just an example, that's correct.
Yeah, the next page you talk about 3,000 canisters shipped over 20 years. That's from where to where?
Low level waste. No, the 3,000 canisters, that's our estimation for 40,000 metric tons that would be coming.
Okay.
3,000 canisters would be shipped over a 20-year time span.
Okay.
And then we don't know how many are going to come on a rail, on a car itself. It could be 1,000 shipments, it could be less. We'll know more as we get down the road, but it's really looking like the impact's going to be maybe 2 or 3 shipments, maybe a week, I think is what we look at.
Depends, the DOE has said 3 to 5 canisters per consist, so it would work out to about 3, maybe 1 per week over the 20 years on an average rate. And that we're looking at 10 to 15 metric tons per canister on average, so the 40,000 tons would be achieved with those 3,000 shipments. Again, that's an estimate, but I think 1 per week is about what would average out if that was all averaged over the course of 20 years.
Okay, I just find it interesting. Your transportation corridor goes from Texas to New Mexico along the borderline, I'm assuming?
That's correct.
Then come back to your site.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Speaking from the overall schedule, you mentioned that with the application of April next year, that to now there will be additional conversation.
That's correct. Today what we wanted to do is sort of lay out the process that we intend to follow to see if it makes sense and to get some feedback like we're hearing today. But as we move forward, we're going to actually get the data. We're going to be finishing up different sections of the environmental report before we submit the application. We'd like to share with you what those results actually are. And it'll probably be longer meetings because it'll be more technical. At least that's my vision for how to proceed forward.
I have a quick question. On your slide 19, criterion 2, seismology and geology, I speak for all 4 counties, 2 that's including that. My question is, if you consider the new generation attenuation, what's the longitude of these 4 counties? Is it east of 104 or west of 104? I can't tell from your graph.
We'll probably get into that next. That'll be part of the safety analysis report. We do look at seismology and those sorts of things and its impacts to our site as well. But that whole area has been studied extensively as far as seismology and geology.
So what's the longitude approximate? Is it 104 east or 104 west?
I'll have to get with you later. I don't know the specifics on that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Jim. You wave the hand from the back of the room.
Just one quick question. All of the sites from which you expect to bring waste, they have current rail access? Or will there be some trucking involved on the front end?
You mean at the decommissioned reactor sites?
Correct.
I think there's going to have to be some augmentation. There's going to have to be some upgrades at those facilities in order to help facilitate the transport to our site. I'm not Mike, you might know.
DOE does assessment of all the shutdown sites. They were just out at Songs, I think, last week. I think some of the sites do have rail access. Some of the sites that were this only would need rail augmentation, but the view would be rail as much as possible to avoid the heavy haul trucking. Great, thanks.
The DOE, I believe, has done a report. They did an initial report, and then a second report revision has been issued. Is that public?
That report has just been posted, so you can get
It's on the DOE Department of the Energy Useful Disposition. Yes, that's been revised to include a few more sites in it. And it's up to the access to each one of the sites, rail or truck, or I think the large site outside there too. Not sure which one it is. And that was Jim Rubenstone of the Up and Down Director who asked that question, by the way.
Just a quick question for the folks on the phone. You can hear us well, right?
Yes, we can hear you fine. I can't. Yeah, you sound good to me.
Are there any other questions?
Did I hear correctly that you'll be taking all the material from all shutdown sites?
I'm sorry, you're not part of the team, right? Are you the team or if you think
If there were any other questions, I raised my hand.
I apologize. It's meant for the either NRC folks or the presenter.
Okay.
So at the end of the meeting, there's going to be a 15-minute for public comments and questions. I apologize.
But how about, since if we have all NRC questions asked, how about we allow 10 minutes or so for public questions?
Yeah?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry to make you get back up again.
I'm Diane DeRigo with Nuclear Information and Resource Service. I wanted to know, I've got several questions here. One is, how long do you intend for the site to be operational?
We're envisioning that the license be for a 40-year time period with 20-year renewals.
And then the expectation is that there'd be a permanent repository to which all of the waste that's brought there will go in 40 years?
We would like to see that happen. I think that we can demonstrate it. We can safely store it beyond that, but our license period that we're asking for is for 40 years.
Okay. And I'm wondering why you chose 4 miles as the radius for the environmental justice analysis and 30 miles for the other analyses?
The 4-mile radius for environmental justice is based on the type memo produced by NRC.
The what memo?
The technical memo for environmental justice. Oh, I'm sorry about that. There's a paper on environmental justice prepared by NRC, and it recommends a 4-mile study area. It recommends 0.6 miles if you're in an urban area, but a 4-mile radius for environmental justice for a rural area. The 30-mile radius is continuing forward with the 2007-2008 analysis that was done, and it was intended from a NEPA perspective to...
I'm sorry, when you're referring to that analysis, the 2007 and 8 analysis, what do you mean?
I apologize. The waste control specialist socioeconomic analysis that was done for the TCEQ permitting for byproduct disposal, we used a 30-mile radius for that, and we continued that because it captures a large area, and it's not limited to that actual circle. Its geography is encountered by that 30-mile radius, so it's actually quite a bit larger since the counties are fairly large.
And I wanted to understand if, I understand that you've got data from the low-level waste licensing, but what kind of material is different? So how can you apply existing conditions to, how can you assume that if it was okay for that facility, that it's going to be okay for high-level radioactive waste?
The data that we're talking about is census data, socioeconomic data, and so the information that was collected for the previous studies was from the 2000 census, and so we have collected new socioeconomic data from the 2010 census. So the data that I'm referring to is about the demographics.
And is that the same for the material that Mr. Kirk was referring to?
Well, we will be analyzing the actual radiological impacts from spent fuel. And we have data from what we've done from low level before. We think
I think you need to turn that on too.
it's on. Can you not hear me?
Not too well.
Okay, well, no, we will be analyzing the radiological impacts from spent fuel storage. But right now, we take low-level waste on a day-to-day basis. I think the final conclusion is that what we're seeing is that the radiological impacts from this project will be very small.
How about one more, Diane, and then we'll open up to folks on the phone.
Oh, can you do one more, did you say?
Yes, one more.
Okay. The 40,000 metric ton amount, is that the full amount that you are applying for with this application? And if so, then it looks to me like that's not the amount that is in red that you would be taking from the closed stranded facilities.
No, 40,000, I'm sorry, from the